of research. Nyame shira omunyina, nyame yadomo china, ye besan ehia ebiem. Lawyer na najo anso e wo ha sei, nyame shira mo.
Okay, should I start?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much and good afternoon. Let me start by saying that we are extremely satisfied with the testimony given by our General Secretary today. In fact, nothing that he has said undermines our case. Indeed, everything he said goes to points to the fact that we are entitled to the declarations that we are seeking. But several interesting things stood out today. Let me start with the video. The video that they sought to show to try and dent the credibility of the General Secretary didn't happen as they thought it would. In the end, his credibility rather soared. If you watch the video, and I'm sure you all watched it, it is clear from the video that he never said at any point in time that the petitioner had won the elections. In fact, what he did were projections, and rightly so. He stated that based on the 141 parliamentary seats that we had won, the projection was that we would win the presidential slot as well. Those were projections he made. And so they were unable to show from the video that the general said what it is they were trying to prove. So of course they flopped in that regard. The other thing that came out clearly was that there were ever-changing figures from the general's testimony. Now, from their own cross-examination, they described these ever-changing figures as manifestly erroneous. We had the 9th December figures of 13,434,574, 10th December 13,119,460. Then in their paragraph 24 of their answer, that's the first respondent's answer, she talks about 13,121,111. Yet again, today, there were corrections made. And we saw that from the cross-examination on Techiman South. On the face of that, their own exhibit, it showed 97,227. But when they did the tally or the collation, it was 99,436. So when we make the point that based on their own declarations, that's the EC's own declarations, there are errors, we are right. And it has been proven by the cross-examination that they conducted that we do not know what the figures are. Based on her own declaration, nobody got more than 50%. And the declaration I'm talking about is the 9th of December declaration. Also important is the issue of padding. They cross-examined the general on the issue of padding. And you can sense from the cross-examination that they admit that there was padding. What they tried to portray was that on a pen drive, there was an indication that there was also padding in favor of the NDC. Now, if they admit that there was padding, then obviously we are dealing with a very flawed election. That is the point, and they admit it. It's a clear admission of a flawed election. And he also made the point that what we attached in terms of padding were only samples. Only samples. So you can't take a sample and deduct it from a whole or an absolute number and get any results, because that sample is simply what it is, a sample. In the end, there were also questions from the bench about our own figures. But I think we need to make it clear, and it's been made clear over and over again. We are here challenging the EC on its own figures. Its own figures. What are those figures? There's the 9th of December, there's the 10th of December so-called correction, and there's also the figure in their paragraph 24. And then today we realize that even in some of the constituencies, and they themselves brought out the example, Techiman South, there are errors. So if you ask us, what are our own figures? How are we going to get our own figures based on all these flawed sheets and different figures? And so we stand by what we are saying, that based on her own declaration, nobody got more than 50%. So today we are happy with the cross-examination of the general. We are happy with the results, and we think that our case was made clearly in the court today. So if there are any questions.
Yes. Sisters.
Yes, the interest in the alternative figures, as the petitioner would have or should have brought to court, maybe it's not a matter of interest to only the bench. A lot of us journalists followed the election keenly, and we know that on all sides, the NPP, the NDC, the CPP, each political party had, call it a collation center or a tabulation center, whatever the name was. But each political party was able to, following the reports from their representatives at the polling stations, tabulate the figures, and at the end was able to tell whether or not they were leading, they were behind, whatever the case may have been. Is it the case that based on the tabulation that the NDC did of the election results, it is not possible for the petitioner to tell us some figures which probably directly contradict the figures that the EC chairperson announced on the 9th of December?
I mean, that's a good question, but having regard to the case we have even brought to the court, I don't even think it's necessary. They themselves have different contradicting figures. Why do you need another one from us? They are different contradicting figures. And that is the point we are making, that the EC themselves, what are the figures?
Yeah, any other? Akabile?
On the point about the alleged vote padding, I just wanted to find out, because we heard General saying sample. I mean, what is the full range of this vote padding that the petitioners team detected? And if indeed you detected that full range, should you rather not be making the case that those votes be annulled? And the other one relates to General's point about the first time he's seen the contents of a pen drive. If you could clarify that point for us as well.
Okay, I think let me start with the issue of the pen drive. The information on the pen drive was printed for the general. It was printed for him, so he saw the hard copy. He didn't actually see the pen drive, you know. And from what I could see on the screen, they were actually reading from the names of the folders, which he would not have. He would have the printed document, because of interest to him was the information on in the documents and not the names of the folders. So that is how it is explained that way. It's not to say he didn't know what was in the folders, but what they read was based on the names of the folders. I hope that is clear to you. Then the other question was what?
The vote pattern. Yeah.
What is
more?
That's not a case.
That's not fundamental to that.
Because you kept saying sample, and the sample came to 4,000 in terms of General's witness statement and about 5,000 in terms of the petitioner's statement. The full range that you discovered in your analysis, how many votes are we looking at, and why are you not making a request with evidence to have those votes annulled instead of relying on the declaration of December 9?
Well, that is the choice that we made, that we will challenge the declaration of December 9th. That is the choice that we made. We brought samples to show how flawed the election was, but our choice was to challenge the very declaration of December 9th.
Okay. We can do the P now.
Yep.
Is that okay?
Okay. Okay. Yo, abusian for yebeda masibiem se masanso ajebre se mu betie yen. And they about court so not say the lawyer Penny, former Attorney General, Honorable Maretta Brewer appear upon Akano. Adia Bakwa, lawyer ma the second respondent. Epe say obey in his cross-examination of our witness General Mosquito ne say obey ma we are seeing na court na hu say and someone yeto aba ni wie ono ne NDC mpanyifo bi e ka ne ho e de tu dwa e fa abato ne sunsuanso ho no enye no no de aba court na wasesa na no enti in conclusion no onya no kwafo na mo amohwe video boy no na mutie anu yi a general edema no a bibia kire se general ankasa de wanka no in any press conference say ya collation on the basis of your collation no John Mama Rene Nensem wokan ye ni nyina kire se your results I kire se NDC Arena parliamentary seats about 141 which he still stands by, and on the basis of that anyhow in the past the trend has been, okay, I said John Dramani Mahama will have the comfort he needs in parliament to govern. Now, Osanso Chiremu say, Sempo, NDC Mpenyufua, Ahodwa, your boy, your numwa sem to say some agent feel to kono. Eka say, na John Mahama wenia. Enya nunti ni abakot. Ya decide say, Enfa honi ye figures are ye white chese ye ni arene no. Ye be yusu easy for nankasa figures. Na ya show court and they say, Sempo ya de figures ne to nchen ye yusu omo ankasa figures mpo a Omampenye Kufuado, the second respondent, did not get more than 50% of the total valid votes cast per the 9th December declaration, which is the only declaration of the 2020 presidential election results. Yehuni say anu year General Mosquito de Maomono it settles this issue. So then I can we know about court abeka we. Yes say ya the figures in the crowd ton chen ye fa one kasa wu figures na Omampenye Kufuado enya more than 50% of the total valid votes cast, and that is a solid case. Number 2, and now more me sure say more cross examination no. Na mu mu bebre ma you confused. Say e den na ato aba Ghana. Ye what different versions of the results of that election. Ye ni fi ye hu bi da. Say ato aba wie na on 9th December to say the Honorable Attorney General Chiremu no. He say total valid votes 13,434,574. On 10th December, no more the press release about almost the total valid votes, 13,119,460. Weeks after, Ghana for nyina just a figure na to we no. Ye the mobile quarter no mass so man no. Almost your figure no 13,121,111. All based on 274 constituency results. How is it possible? Say about to abako ye benya different figures. To what your cross examination no cry na. I say you based on assumption. Okay, you find the results in here. You find the results in here. And the General Mosquito Chiremu ne say about to na ye to no sa total valid votes no ma would ya various candidates. And until the figures cannot be changing. Na sempo ufi say wo the figure be dikan to dwa. Na mfonso wo mu a. And I'm saying number no so mfidi a number no so na ehwenti no. E was say wo frɛ all the agents of the presidential candidates. Na ye nyina ye tena se na ye the necessary corrections. Won kwa won ko hye esumu na won fa figures a any basis on valid votes cast. Ma bonten. And me free say na mu nyina mu hu bi. O maka say figures ni bi a slip na de keka ho. Say yes slip no. Ye best say ochina ye nyina ye more modern ye proceedings ye nim say dole the cross examination of the returning officer of the presidential election Madam G Mensa no e betumi aba so na ya hwe whether say this claim say a mere slip and a mere mistake no can stand the test of law. They are also miensa Honorable former Attorney General kan wasem the issue of pardon. Na na de ya te no court no ye ho adwiri yen. Pardon no asechire ne se wo yewura Johnson Asiedun Ketia adan secretary wo de aba court. Ene owura Mahama petition wo de aba court no. Ye de 26 constituency resource aba kire se baby o mampanyi kufu adunya emma ebia apem no ye de be oha aka ne ho. Enti ne mma no ye de bia keka ne ho a enya Ghana for ne to sa aba ne ma no. EC official bi na de pen sebio ewie bi e de akeka ene ne friend pardon no. Eno ti se wo beji tumu se oh okay I know de esua abusiafo say ye one mpo a de kire ne se talking about credibility. If the cross-examination of General Mosquito is about credibility, so kanokra na one kanokra. Even if you admit say obo krono the vote ba kokra ka o mampenye kufuado de ho. What credibility do you have? Not to talk of close to 5,000 votes. In 2012, some people for their dance here ba kokra ba court. Sa farijan. E de one vote to kra ka John Mama de ho akombeka sesua. Nti enye krono. Nti kwabo krono ne ache wa wo se we die sua. And on Nanchen, no person was chair say, oh, G Mensa. Te said ye, we are money be card, or my penny kufu de honor, or we are biso majo Mahama. Obusianfo, we are somewhere was here Shannon. Because this is the first time. This is the first time. Ewo Ghana bako semua. Ya to abewie, na de wato so mienu ne say, ye we be ama de wedi first. The wedi first no so see ye we be ama de wato so mienu. What does it mean? It means that abato no sunso ye de to dwa no is flawed. Because of the other the issue of pen drive former Attorney General Achrim nipa bebre na petition we ho adwuma exhibits bebre ye de aka petition ne yewura Asiedun Ketia dan secretary ye friend witness statement no ho aba court answer yewura Asiedun Ketia de ma court no should let everybody know that this is an honest witness who only speak to matters within his personal knowledge. Sir exhibit no ekasa about pardon about why ye di bia keka ki come ampenye kufu adoma ho. Ye the soft copy of good pen drive so. And ye the hard copy no so ato file no so. General Mosquito say hard copy na me hwe. Pen drive no dey mentimi ahwe. Ye free say boni bi anim. In any case, at the crocro mo person ko mo be kire no no. O ma ntimi am point no on the screen. We didn't see anything on the screen e kire say John Mahama de ni anaweni. So, and also you're very satisfied with the answer General Demai. And again, this issue about mo say ye wi abani mu a mo amu figures wen mo amu total valid votes ye den. Mo amu ma mo say John Mahama nya ye den. Mo amu ma mo say o mampenye kufuado nya ye den. That question no. Ye wura say Ketia yi ano a. Ene ye ma me Attorney General so achechim. De ye kan say ya ma court say ye figures a ye collation ye nyaye no eno ho manso ne ye betwe ye ba court to say 1992 constitution na power panyimu bi a ono ne ye to mampanya abato awie a o wa asodie se obobo wa bobo awie wa sans wa pass sa declaration no into law abeye mra CI 135 enti ya fa na numu asem ono ani figures no gina so aka say declaration ni dia and your mampanya kufuado anya more than 50%. Ye figures no emamu ho. Na nye bia de na Honorable Attorney General kan say me de beba twi kase mu ade o kan say ade say wo betimi anya results age say o kita 275 constituency summary sheets o carbon copy and na wa bekeka bo anya wo total valid votes na wo de aye wo divisions eno na bekeka bo no wahu John Mahama ne o mampanya kufuado ma sa summary sheets yisui eno na nema hu ni court say figures na was no bebre ye wrong. Techiman South to the Okikabo mua amount 99,436 as the total valid votes. And so you see say 97,227. It is a pay figures in Mudia in Yebisu. How do you know which one is correct and which one to use? And there are several of such examples. And nothing a general car say, and possible. So one case will bet me any accurate collation of your own. No when you any accurate figures because election no a flawed. Ebusian for the Ebeka to nyina say ye ni aso adanse a ye twetwe for penny General Mosquito wedding wadaka nim. Yasem pa yɛde aba beto court na nim no yɛfiri sɛ it has not been undermined in any way, and the credibility of our witness has not been undermined in any way. Yɛbɛsrɛ Ghanafoɔ nyinaa mo pɛ sɛ mo hu 2020 presidential election no abatoɔ no mu nokorɛ sɛ ɔkyena ɛne ɛda ɛna ɛda yɛnim no yɛnyɛ mmerɛ no yɛnhwɛ proceedings ni bi, because yɛmaame gye mensa ɔno no adwuma ho asɛm na aba ha yi no ɔbɛtena daka nim no yɛbisa ne nsɛm na yɛn nyinaa yɛhu deɛ ɔka nokorɛ, yɛn nyinaa yɛhu sɛ abatoɔ no nsunsuan so a yɛde ato dwa no ɛyɛ valid and ɛnyɛ valid. Na yɛde ano si no ma yɛnka sɛ sɛ obi ka sɛ General Mosquito can the court to say yɛama court to challenge the validity of the election, na yɛba court to challenge Jimensa adwuma sɛ wayɛ ana wɔnyɛ ya na kyerɛ sɛ ɔno asɛm na wɔka no nte aseɛ, because Jimensa sɛ what discharging the constitutional duties as returning officer no, the validity of the election ne ka ho bi. So if you are challenging whether Jimensa as the returning officer has performed her constitutional responsibilities, you are also challenging the validity. A declaration was and declaration is part of the election. So if we are challenging the constitutionality and the validity of it, it means we are challenging the validity of the election. Thank you.
And so those were the two press conferences addressed by the